This is Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We've all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone.
Don't you fucking tease that horse!
You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. Today is episode 148 of the Conscious Resistance Live. I am here in Morelia, Mexico, talking about the incoming Donald Trump administration. As the title indicates, the next Trump admin won't save you. But realistically, that's not the focus of today's show. We will be discussing that. And it was admittedly a bit intended to draw in people who may be offended to actually listen. But we are going to talk about the next Trump incoming admin today. You know, there was some confirmation hearings beginning for people in his cabinet. I've got a whole folder of things about each of these people, including the connections to Peter Thiel, which is interestingly a name that it seems like some people in the so-called independent media, or maybe more specifically the mainstream alternative media, refuse to address or talk about, and that is Peter Thiel, and we'll get into that more. We're also going to talk about some fluoride updates in the stories related to fluoride, both a new study that has come out from the U.S. government, as well as a new lawsuit that has just been filed by Michael Connett, who's the same attorney who fought the fluoride lawsuit that I've been reporting on for the last 7 or 8 years here, and some updates about my own hometown of Houston and some news I have about fluoride there, which I should be able to confirm very soon and will be big deal. And I'll be writing an article about it when it comes out, but I'm going to tell you guys about that today. And then what else do we got? What did I put in the description? We're going to talk a little bit about geoengineering. That is, I wrote a recent article about geoengineering. And then, of course, we'll talk about the People's Reset. Why don't we start there? I just showed you that video you just saw there with the music and people looking all happy and stuff. That's at the People's Reset activation. That's an event that I organize and have been organizing since January 2021, a completely solutions-focused event. Because, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years, doing this being activism, journalism, independent reporting, generally speaking, trying to activate people, motivate people, get people to take action in their lives, to become less and less dependent on the corporate state. And because I believe that will lead to liberty in the long term, like I wrote about in my book, How to Opt Out the Technocratic State. And doing the People's Reset is just one extension of that. When I was originally from Houston, living in Houston, and even here in Morelia in Mexico, where I live now, I've always been a person that it's not enough to just be awake. Like, okay, I'm so awake. I watch Alex Jones and I read books or watch documentaries, or these days I listen to podcasts, and I'm so cool and aware, but I'm not going to do anything about it. That just wasn't satisfactory for me. And unfortunately, it seems like that is the way that most people live. Most people in the so-called awake, truth, health, freedom communities, whatever you want to call it, conspiracy, realism, etc. It's like doing the deep dives and going down the rabbit holes and listening to podcasts and knowing things are messed up just seems to be enough for people. And that's never been enough for me. I've always wanted to try to orient myself towards solutions. Like, what can I actually do for myself and for my community and the people around me? How can I actually create more freedom now? Wouldn't that be a novel, radical idea? So I've always tried to be very hands-on and action-oriented and be, you know, active in my own backyard, so to speak. And one thing on that, I'll just mention that over the years, as I've got to know a lot of different content creators and independent journalists, including people I've met in person, hung out, really became friends with in some cases, and others who I've just, through interviews got to know a little bit. This is something I see even among those who are the ones doing the podcast. They really have no connection in their own backyard. And I'm not going to say any names. I think it's just kind of a common issue that it's actually more rare, unfortunately, that people do have, they're active in their community. Like, for example, one activist / citizen journalist that I would really give big credit to is Justin over at We Are Change, who I've interviewed probably 3 times at this point. Justin, we've talked to him on this channel. Justin Harvey of We Are Change Orlando, doing amazing work in Florida, lately on fluoride, but over the years, a number of different things, making the news, going out and confronting local politicians when necessary, raising awareness about 5G, about geoengineering, all the controversial things, vaccines, and now fluoride and other things. He's also into some issues that aren't really my thing, like flat Earth. But overall, I mean, I can look at that and be like, well, Justin still puts in way more work than most people, even if I don't necessarily agree with him on that issue. And so I'd rather have 1,000 Justins who might have some beliefs that I don't necessarily 100%, vibe with, but is very active in their community getting shit done, than thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who just believe like me but don't take any action, if that makes sense. So I'm saying all this to say that the People's Reset event that I've been organizing since 2021 is all about action. It is about trying to help people get super organized in their lives and actually take concrete steps to create freedom in their lives. I mean, I know it's a novel idea for some people. Again, the idea that we might actually be able to advance the causes and the issues that we care about, but I do think it's worthy and it's possible, but it's not possible if people don't actually start and take steps in their own lives to be free from the incoming slavery systems that I wrote about 5 years ago in 2019 in my book, How to Opt Out the Technocratic State, which you can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. If you don't do anything, if you just sit still, you will be subsumed and sucked into the technocratic state, the technocratic system that they are working on. If you don't actually take action, you can't just... I mean, I know a lot of you think you just voted the problem away because so many people in the freedom movement fell for the whole Trump deception again. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But for those of us who recognize that politics is not the answer, that violence is not the answer, and that apathy and being black-pilled and nihilistic and whatever, just giving up isn't the answer, we are looking for solutions. Part of that to me is the People's Reset. This will be our 6th event in Mexico and our 7th event overall, because we just had our first one in the UK a couple of months ago, where myself and our team were invited to come bring this whole crazy freedom circus on the road to the UK and connect with hundreds of other people there. And so now, after 7 events, I think we understand really how to build a solutions-focused movement. So if you're out there listening to people who are just telling you that everything is garbage, the world's going to end, or telling you that Donald Trump's going to save you or Elon Musk is going to save you, you need to find better sources, first of all, but also stop listening to those people and take action. And so when we come together in 2 weeks, it's exactly 2 weeks from today. Like 2 weeks from today, there's going to be 300 to 400 people from a dozen countries in Morelia, Mexico. There's going to be 10,000 plus people who usually tune in online for free. And people who give a crap and are actually taking steps towards solutions. So if that's you, my friends, even if you can't make it in person, I do encourage you to come in person. There's nothing like gathering with 300 to 400 freedom-loving people from all over the world who are excited and pumped. And again, this is not like any other event you've been involved in or seen, because we don't talk about the problems. You can do that all day at home. So it's very decentralized, where there's going to be 40 plus workshops of all kinds of fun stuff. People are teaching, both speakers from the main stage and just the regular people like you who show up and want to get involved. And then we do have 35 talks from activists and journalists and permaculturists from around the world. Our 5 themes are liberate mind, body, and soul, permaculture and food independence, agorism and parallel networks, empowering technology, and building free and conscious communities. And I'm spending a minute on this, guys. I'm going to get to some of the news in just a minute, because I know that's what you guys come to expect from me. But man, I really wish that across all the platforms, I know I don't have 1 million followers yet, and I'm not the biggest channel, but I've been doing this for 15 years, and those who've been paying attention consistently can see that not not only am I talking to you guys about these potential solutions, but I'm actually living them. And I think that's a big difference between myself and some of the other people that you might follow out there. I actually am living these things. And a week, I'm going to be, along with the Conscious Agora community that we've been building for the last 4 years, we're going to be paying off our property. And we have the title and the deed to the property. We're vetting new members and bringing new people in. Everything that is being discussed at the People's Reset is something that I am practicing and working on practicing in my own life, because my activism, for those who've been around or have read the Conscious Resistance trilogy, I talk about holistic activism or holistic anarchism. And that is the way to approach things. So you need to think about holistically: money, food, education, technology, all these different areas of our life, really all these areas that we can be attacked by the technocratic state, and how to strengthen those things or to exit from certain systems that might not be leading to liberty and privacy in the long term. That ethos, what I call exit and build, is what the People's Reset is all about. It's a lot of fun. It's community. There's going to be 2 concerts. There's going to be cacao ceremony and ayahuasca ceremony for those who want to participate. Networking, 5 different networking sessions. There's going to be meetups, dinners, all kinds of stuff going on. And it's all solutions focused. And the people who come and go home, their lives are changed. I mean, I don't really know how else to tell you guys. So whether you can make it in person, right now the tickets are very affordable. We've got 10% off for the next 36 hours. Go to thepeoplesreset.org, check out the tickets. Use activation25 as your code, just for those who do want to come in person. I know it's last minute for some of you, but if you actually want to invest in yourself, my friends, consider coming to the People's Reset, and your life might be changed. That's all I'm saying. If not, you can watch the entire event for free, thepeoplesreset.org, January 29th to February. You can find us. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I think I dropped off the back screen for a minute. Thank you, guys. I see it now. Let me see if it doesn't kick me out. It's trying to kick me out. Okay. Sorry about that. You can find my website, theconsciousresistance.com, guys. If you haven't been following me for the years I've been doing this for 11 years, broadcasting, putting out documentaries, books, articles, podcasts, interviews. It's all available here for free. You can find it at theconsciousresistance.com, broken down by topic, very easy for you to digest. Check it out. And if you want to support, you can do so there as well. And again, thepeoplesreset.org is our main website. It's happening January 29th to the February 2nd, in person in Mexico, or for free online. Just sign up for our email list there and you'll get the updates, because solutions is just what matters more than ever, man. I know that I try to be a solutions guy, and I'm going to continue to be, but there really is this internal struggle that I experience, for anybody who gives a crap, between chasing viral numbers and clicks to reach more people because I have projects like the Pyramid of Power that I think, and I've seen and I've heard from people, can change their lives and educate them and take them from being asleep to awake. So I want to get in front of the millions of followers, right? And the millions of human beings out there, ears and eyes, to pay attention to the books I've written and the journalism I do, and the activism I've done. And I've had some of that. I've had some viral things go, over the years, and that's great. It's a good feeling. But I also am a guy that is building on land. It is focused on getting out of these systems. And I know that some of the things like talking about solutions, that's not what makes you trendy, unfortunately, at least not in our community. There's our channels out there that are focused totally on, like, let's say, construction or permaculture, that have their lane and they're viral in their lane. But the conspiracy theorists don't necessarily pay attention to those people. They just want to talk about conspiracy theories all the time. In fact, it's kind of crazy. I have this happen. I meet a lot of people in real life and they want to talk to me about conspiracies all the time. And I know it might seem like that's a favorite topic of mine because of the work I do, but I actually don't want to talk about conspiracy theories with you. I'd rather talk about other things because, frankly, I'm tired of talking about conspiracy theories and exposing them. So nevertheless, I have that balance of okay, well, here's this trending topic. Everybody's talking about P. Diddy this week. Oh, and there's so-and-so going viral talking about P. Diddy with information that I already have or I've reported on in the past. Maybe I need to hurry up and make a video and get it out there. And there's this energy, this excitement, and this pool to participate in that. And sometimes I do, and a lot of times more recently I don't, because I'm thinking long-term evergreen. I want content, books, documentaries, etc. They're going to outlast just being the flavor of the week trending podcaster or journalist because I had a viral video. If I get a viral video, great. I'm going to use that to catapult to reach more minds. And if I go on big channels like Redacted and others, and I'm going to go on even bigger channels this year in 2025 to spread the truth as far and wide as possible, I do so, though, to pull people into my world and help them find real solutions. That's what I'm always after. But for some reason, the solutions aren't sexy. Everybody out there, you guys just want to hear about how fucking crazy the world is and not necessarily about how to grow your own food or how to build a compost toilet. We built a compost toilet on our property this weekend, more of an outhouse that we're going to put a compost toilet in using the bucket and a little lid and everything like that. But it was cool. I'm not a person who is very experienced working with my hands growing up. I did work in construction for a few years, did things like that, but it's definitely not my strength. I'm better with my mind, but I love it. I love the challenge of building and creating. And I know it's just the beginning. We're going to be building our homes this year, building education center. To me, these are the solutions. And guys, I will continue to do reporting over the years. But I do plan for this channel to shift in 2025 and beyond to be more about documenting building on our land and permaculture and growing food and trying to show you the People's Reset and the solutions like this. And so I will continue to be a journalist because it's my passion and I love it. And I have so many more investigations coming up. But I also am more focused than ever on trying to bring solutions to you guys. And I think that's what really matters more than anything. So that was my long-winded way to say, please pay more attention to the solutions, as I think those matter more. But let's go ahead and get into our first couple of topics. I'm going to pull these up real quick. I had an update on fluoride. Let me see this. Here we go. Update on fluoride and an update on geoengineering that I wrote this past week. We also are going to briefly mention the NSO group and spyware because you guys should know about that. And I also have a clip that I want to play from my recent interview with my buddy Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond. And we're going to play that as we talk about Donald Trump's policies, because we will be talking about Trump. Trump is going to be inaugurated in 6 days. And actually, I did have a flight reserved to go to DC for the inauguration. Unfortunately, plans have changed. I'm not going to be able to make it. But my buddy Kenny will be out there. He's going to be out there rallying, passing out free Ross signs, really trying to hope that Donald Trump actually keeps his word and frees Ross Ulbricht in 6 days. And I know his family's praying for that. And a lot of people are really hopeful. A lot of people are skeptical like myself. But Kenny's going to be out there. And I was planning to be there doing some man on the street interviews. Like I said, it's just not going to happen. But nevertheless, in 6 days, Donald Trump will be the new president by next week. And a lot of people are really curious / concerned, or some excited, obviously, about what he may or may not do. And we will be talking about that because I think in some areas, there's going to be some good. I'll admit it. I think there's going to be positive things that will happen under Donald Trump. And I think that is part of the plan to allow Trump to come back in and to do certain things like perhaps secure the freeing of the hostages, in Israel that we keep hearing about. And, I'm skeptical of that whole story. I'm not going to say there's no hostages, the whole thing's made up, but obviously I don't trust anything Israel says. And so I think you could have a situation where Trump is granted or allowed a few wins that in the eyes of his followers and maybe other people who don't trust him or are skeptical, they might say, oh, wow, okay, he actually did X, Y, and Z. Maybe he is legit. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and trust Trump now. Or we'll get Derrick, see, I told you, look, you guys were wrong. See, he's doing some good things. He just ended the Israeli-Palestine conflict, the most recent one. He did this thing, whatever. I'm already getting into the topic and I'm not even intending to. So he did all these different things. And now we should trust him, and et cetera, et cetera. I'm not one to buy that story personally, and I would definitely warn you against buying such a story that Donald Trump is going to come save the day. And if some good things do start happening, that doesn't remove or end all the potentially horrible things that we have heard him say about. And if you followed me now for a while, you know how I feel about this topic, because prior to the election, I was warning people about Trump and telling people, look at what he's already saying in terms of free speech. It's basically saying he's going to silence critics of Israel, and he wants to deport anti-Israel, or what do you say, pro-Hamas radicals. That's a way, of course, to frame anybody who questions Israel as an alleged terrorist. But anyways, we'll get into that in a few minutes. So stay tuned if you want to hear the Trump. You're curious about my thoughts on the whole Trump situation, incoming administration. But let's talk about fluoride now. So I've been following the fluoride fight since the beginning of my career, the beginning of my activism. I've been fighting against water fluoridation in Houston since 2011, where I'm originally from. I don't have to worry about that in Mexico because, oddly enough, they don't fluoridate the water, they fluoridate the salt, which is kind of like a lot of different countries, apparently. But in the US and in Houston, where I'm originally from, the water is fluoridated, and I've been fighting there for years. And so if you've seen my reporting, again, go to theconsciousresistance.com. You can go check our tab here on water fluoridation. You can find everything I've done about water fluoridation, including all of my interviews relating to the fluoride lawsuit, including with Dr. Howard Hu, Dr. Bruce Lanphier, Dr. Philippe Grandjean. You can see my interview with Michael Conant, who we're going to talk about in just a moment. You can see my interviews on Redacted talking about the fluoride lawsuit and things of this sort. So if you're not caught up, go ahead and get into that, because I'm not going to repeat all that work. But this is a new study coming from the US government that just came out about a week ago. And even the New York Times couldn't ignore this one. They've tried to ignore previous things like the lawsuit and stuff, but they couldn't ignore this one. So let's just dive into this for a second. Study links high fluoride exposure to lower IQ in children. This is now the third or fourth study to conclude this, and two of them coming directly from the US government, with the National Toxicology Program NTP report, which came out in September of 2024, after being delayed for more than 2 years, which we only found out because of emails that were released during the fluoride lawsuit. So the NTP, National Toxicology Program, in the US government said that fluoride is associated with lower IQ in children. Then there was another study that came out, I think it was May last year, that also said something similar. And there have, overall, the NTP's work is based on an analysis of other reports. And this is what this same thing is called, a meta-analysis. And the Times writes, the results of a new federal analysis were drawn from studies conducted in other countries where drinking water contains more fluoride than in the United States. You see how this is how the mainstream media works. And this is one of my problem with a lot of people in the so-called independent media conspiracy space. You guys, some of you out there believe that everything in the mainstream media is fake. And so I could share a link with somebody and say it's about Trump, just as an example, and it's a pro-Trump person. If it's from a source they don't like, CNN, New York Times, whatever, even if it's literally quoting from Trump directly himself, word for word, everything he said, they would say, oh, no, whatever, that's the fake news, New York Times, et cetera, and just assume it's fake, even if it's literally just a direct quote from Trump or whatever. This is a problem. What the mainstream really does is they lie by omission, obfuscation, and by highlighting certain facts to try to make them seem more important than they might, or to just get people to downplay the conclusion. So headline is accurate. Study links high fluoride exposure. And even that, though, see, this is the way they say high fluoride exposure to lower IQ in children. And yes, that is true. And at the same time, as I've reported on in the past, these outlets continue to try to portray it like it's only at the higher levels. Now, there is uncertainty when you're getting into the lower levels of fluoride exposure, and even close to what the US government recommends at 0.7 milliliters per liter. They, even at that level, there is still some uncertainty, but we know for certain that there is risk and that harm is happening. But what they'll try to do is basically use the word high fluoride exposure, and in the subheading is the results of this analysis were drawn from other countries. So not in the US. Don't really pay attention to this, which a lot of pro-American people are like, oh, I don't care what happens in other countries, where drinking water contains more fluoride than the US. And again, that isn't necessarily inaccurate, but that's what they want people to focus on. Instead of the headline of what is actually being said, and they do say it more clearly in the article, but as we know, a lot of people just read the headline. So study links high fluoride exposure, right? So that means if I'm a normie person and one of my friends comes up and says, hey, see, I told you fluoride's connected to, lowering IQ, they're trying to kill you, whatever. The person will say, no. The New York Times said it's at high fluoride exposure and from other countries who have much higher fluoride than the US. So I am going to just keep drinking my fluoride. And then they just chug a big old glass. This is not fluoridated water, by the way. So I just wanted to highlight that for a moment, because that's really how they work. They don't necessarily just outright lie. They try to focus on different points. And this has been a tactic that's been happening since the NTP study, where they choose at levels twice the recommended limit. I've covered this in past videos. It's really frustrating and it's completely dishonest. So they go on, of course, to do the natural thing. Water fluoridation is one of the greatest public health achievements of the 20th century. However, a comprehensive federal analysis of scores of previous studies, which were published in the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, has added to those concerns about fluoride lowering IQ. It found a significant inverse relationship between exposure levels and cognitive function in children. Higher fluoride exposures were linked to lower IQ scores, concluded researchers working with the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences, the NIEHS. None of the studies in the analysis were conducted in the US, where recommended fluoridation levels in drinking water are very low. So again, don't worry, it's very low. At that amount, evidence was too limited to draw definitive conclusions. Observational studies cannot prove a cause and effect relationship. And so again, they're going on to sort of downplay it here. But they do get a little bit more to the point here. The analysis found for every 1 part per million increase in fluoride in urinary samples, which reflect total exposure from water and other sources, IQ points in children decrease by 1.63. So for every 1 part per million that you're introducing to a child of fluoride in the water, there's an opportunity for them to lose 1.63 IQ points. They interview an epidemiologist, Kyla Taylor, who's the lead author of the report. She says, there is concern that pregnant women and children are getting fluoride from many sources and that their total fluoride exposure is too high and may affect fetal, infant, and child neurodevelopment. Well, this is what we've been screaming from the rooftops for quite a while now, and another study is now confirming it, and even the New York Times can no longer deny it. So, they're basically just bringing out that awareness. It keeps coming out. Now, this is the interesting thing, is because this is still like a case of they, quote unquote, have their experts and we have our experts, like it was during COVID. I mean, this thing was so frustrating to me, is that there would be some big, study or information coming out showing the dangers of the COVID shots, but it would only be reported on in the independent media. And in the corporate media, the mainstream media would just either completely ignore it, or they would pull out one of their experts like Peter Hotez or something to say, here's why that story is complete bullshit and you need to not pay attention to it. It's totally garbage. Everything's fine, right? So they have their experts and we have our experts. And I just think that might be par for the course, that people are going to be living in these different realities, which kind of sounds crazy to imagine, but I think that's kind of where we're at now, is that the people who are going to think fluoride's safe and keep chugging it, they're going to listen to this Dr. Stephen Levy, and the ones who are going to be questioning it, they're going to listen to Dr. Bruce Lanphier. And so what I'm talking about here is that this report, which was a US government report, because it was so controversial, the medical journal JAMA Pediatrics, they felt like they had to do a little bit of a both sides thing and say, okay, here's an editorial from the side of the anti-fluoride saying this study is good, and here's a study, a point of view from a dentist saying why this study is bunk and you should not trust it. So Dr. Stephen Levy, who's a public health dentist at University of Iowa, he wrote one of the editorials, and he said that the study, many of the studies included were low quality, and he said he warned against this study being used to make any changes in American fluoridation policies. He says, quote, "A lay reader or policymaker at a water board in a small community somewhere may see the evidence and think that every way you analyze it, it's a concern. It isn't as clear cut as they're trying to make it." So again, then on the other side, you had Dr. Bruce Lanphier, who I did interview at the fluoride trial. I highly encourage you guys to go watch this interview with Dr. Bruce Lanphier. You can find it in here because he's actually a really interesting guy, not only on the fluoride issue, but he's a Canadian scientist, and he started to blow the whistle about pesticides related to GMOs as well. And so he spoke out in a number of different areas, and he received some backlash for that too. Dr. Bruce Lanphier speaks out against corrupted science, fluoride science. You can find that at theconsciousresistance.com or really on any of the platforms you're watching me on now. So he wrote the second editorial, and he said that, where is it at? He said that the potentialities for harm far outweigh those for good. And it's interesting because they didn't really quote from his piece, but they let the pro-fluoride guy, have a full quote. So they gave him a little bit more space. Nevertheless, it's just one more strike to the heart of the argument that fluoride is safe. And I take this personal. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do take this personal, not only because I have 6 nieces and nephews, and if my family thinks that fluoride is good, now I've told them all over the years, and my brother and family, they know, but unfortunately, even if they're buying bottled water, there could be fluoride in there. And it's not just that as the article talked about here, you do get fluoride exposures from numerous different areas. This has been the main argument that myself and other people have been making, that the government tries to focus just on, well, how much is in the water? And obviously that's an important component of the discussion, but it's also about your intake of fluoride from other areas. So if you're drinking a lot of teas, green tea, and I think black tea, some others can be found with high traces of fluoride in them. Then if you're eating processed foods like canned goods, unless it says like reverse osmosis water in there or something, it's more than likely just fluoridated water. Obviously the shower, you're absorbing it through your skin then, and processed foods, and pesticides, some pesticides have fluoride in them as well. So we can get exposed in a number of different ways. And it's that accumulation, that cumulative effect that actually starts to impact the body, not just the developing brain that we're focusing on for young kids and for babies, which obviously matters. That's why I care about my nieces and nephews, but also it can affect your hips, your bones, your thyroid. That can be contributing to diabetes and so many other issues that we're seeing. And my interview with Dr. Lanphier, I believe it was him, we talked about the thyroid as well and the problem that that's causing for women. So it's really just attacking the body in so many different ways, and it's important that we put an end to it. But I was going to say, I do kind of take this personally because as an activist in Houston who has been fighting against fluoride since 2011, I think was the first time I went to city council. The first flyer I can ever remember putting up as an activist, besides just, I used to do street art, and that was like my first form of activism. I printed out one of those old school InfoWars flyers. There's just like a poster that said, "There's poison in the tap water." And I just printed out a bunch of those, and I was going around telephone poles and light poles in my neighborhood and taping them up. And then like a couple of days later, somebody tore it down, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to do it again. And then as I started to get more open as an activist and go to city council, I saw some of the other activists kind of snicker like, this guy thinks fluoride's bad for you. Oh my God, what a crazy conspiracy theorist. You start to see, okay, those people get one issue, but they don't really get the bigger picture. And so I've had people laugh to my face, call me an idiot. I've had people act like they're so, like they puff up their chest and hold their college degree in their hand and wave it around like they're so much more educated than me. And here it is, 2024, last year, I was the only journalist that stayed in the courtroom for the federal fluoride lawsuit for the entire time, for the 10 days plus. I was the only journalist there. There was only one other journalist, Brenda Belletti from Children's Health Defense, but she wasn't able to stay the whole time. But thankfully she was there. Otherwise I would have been completely alone. Other than the fluoride advocates there. So to go from being laughed at and made fun of by people who think they're so intelligent and so smart to then being the only journalist reporting on this, and to just having like all these interviews with these scientists that are showing, and not just saying, oh, I'm going to pick and choose scientists that agree with me, but these are scientists that were seen as credible by the US government. And Dr. Bruce Lanphier and Dr. Philippe Grandjean, their work was part of the setting the US government standards for mercury and for lead exposure. So these are people that they deem as credible in their own eyes, except when it comes to fluoride. So a huge, huge topic. And let me say that I mentioned Houston and fluoride. I am working on a story in Houston. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request on the city of Houston, trying to get all records, contracts, memos, and emails related to hydrofluorosilicic acid, water fluoridation, and fluoride. And I did so because, unfortunately, I had to spend $70 to do so because, as stupid as it sounds, the city of Houston doesn't put that anywhere publicly. They used to. 10 years ago, when I was fighting and going to city council and trying to raise awareness about this, and we got like 4 or 5 council members willing to listen to us, the budget was there, and you could see that they spent $1 million a year in the city of Houston. Every time somebody pays a water bill, it goes to the fluoride fund. And that $1 million they make, which, it's not a lot of money in terms of a city, but still it's $1 million. And they go buy hydrofluorosilicic acid from this company, Mosaic Incorporated, based in Florida, where they're doing this aluminum phosphate mining. And the byproduct of that is what we call fluoride, or hydrofluorosilicic acid. And they have, over time, the city of Houston, they hide that now. It's not listed in the budget anywhere. So I've been on the phone, I've been calling people, emailing, because even though I don't live there anymore, my family does, and I'm just curious and I want to know. And I have heard from 2 city employees, I haven't confirmed, that's why I'm getting these documents, that Houston, Texas no longer fluoridates, and that they stopped fluoridating sometime in the last couple of years. And it makes me really curious, because not only is that pretty big news, because that would make Houston the 4th largest city in the US, the biggest city in the United States that does not fluoridate. And I think that's newsworthy. And so I will be reporting on that when I can confirm. That's what I've been told so far. But because nobody would give me information through phone calls and email requests, and it's not listed anywhere in the city, nowhere listed in the budget, it's like hidden somewhere in like special projects or something, I've had to file open records request and spend $70. This is the work of an independent journalist that cares and trying to get the facts. And hopefully I'll be getting all those documents. I don't know how many pages it's going to be, but they said it's going to be substantial. They've already confirmed they do have documents related to my request. I've made the payment. It should be coming in hopefully this week, in the next couple weeks, and I will have the fun, nerdy time of pouring through those documents and putting that puzzle piece together, trying to decipher when the city of Houston stopped paying for water fluoridation, because that's amazing news, and I want to celebrate it. And I imagine it's because the city of Houston, like many major cities, is completely broke. They're in debt. And so they've been looking for ways to save money. In fact, when I ran for mayor of Houston in 2023, one of the reasons I did was to talk about fluoride. And I was saying, hey, if you're trying to save the city money, let's cut this $1 million fluoride program and send a check back to everybody. Now, of course, with the size of the city of Houston and the number of people living in the city of Houston, that would probably amount to like $1 or a couple of dollars each. But hey, when has the government ever given you anything back? So I say, hey, give the people back their $1 and let's end the fluoride program. So it seems like it might have actually quietly happened. And at some point, city council over the last few years decided no more fluoride. And maybe they didn't realize what they were doing. Maybe they didn't want the public to know for it to become an issue. And in fact, I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm going to pursue forward because I want to know the truth, and the truth has to be known. But I'm kind of in one way concerned that it's not an issue now, and it kind of just quietly somebody turned off the fluoride feed and was like, hey, we can't afford it, let's just cut it, and nobody will notice. But I'm kind of concerned is if I publicize this, that then all of a sudden the pro-fluoride people, especially because it's starting to be associated with Trump and RFK, and a lot of people don't like them, would then all of a sudden form a resistance and say, we got to get the fluoride back in the water and come fight for it. Because as crazy as that sounds, that has happened in some cities. There's actually a city in New York State, I believe, I can't remember, I read about this a couple months ago, that is suing because their fluoride was turned off basically a similar situation. The fluoride was turned off in this city a couple years ago and nobody really knew. And so the people, like some of the people, are suing the city for them not being fluoridated for a couple of years. It's insane. Nevertheless, if I do find that out, I will be reporting on that, because I think that is good news to say, hey, the 4th largest city in the United States is not fluoridating anybody. fluoridating their city. And I think that'd be cool to find out. So, all right, let's go back to, I got one more article related to fluoride, and then we're going to move on to talking about geoengineering. Thank you guys for being here. Please hit the thumbs up, hearts, likes, flames, wherever you're at, whether you're watching on Odyssey. Shout out to everybody on Odyssey, on Twitter, both YouTube channels, and across Facebook, and whoever else is watching later on BitChute, Substack, listening on Spotify. We appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much. So let's look at this. In other good news, so first we got this big study that we just talked about that the mainstream's still trying to twist and make it seem less credible than it is. But we also got this good news. I just saw this one. I was told about this a couple days ago. Michael Connett, I just tweeted this earlier, more great work fighting to end the mass poisoning of American children by Michael P. Connett. And Michael and I hopefully will have an interview coming up soon, but he posted this thread here. And for those who don't know Michael Connett, he is an amazing attorney who is the lawyer at Fluoride Action Network, who worked representing the Fluoride Action Network. He's a partner, as you can see here, at Seary and Glimstad. It's a law firm with Aaron Seary, some of you guys may know, and he's a lead attorney for the plaintiffs in the Food Water Watch Fluoride Action Network versus EPA fluoride lawsuit. And I asked Michael a couple months ago in an interview we did, and he sort of, if you go back and listen to that interview, he kind of hinted that this was coming. I said that one of the reasons I think the EPA and the government has been fighting against the fluoride lawsuit so strongly is because they worry that if the judge does rule, which he did, that fluoride is a neurotoxin, that it could open the door to all kinds of class action lawsuits, my friends. And guess what? Michael just filed the first one. I'm happy, this is yesterday he posted, I'm happy to announce that today I filed 6 class action lawsuits against the nation's largest manufacturer of candy-flavored kids' fluoride products. These companies are responsible for overexposing millions of young children to dangerous levels of fluoride. We got Act, Colgate, and Firefly. And one of them, for those who aren't watching on the screen, it says Kids Anti-Cavity Mouthwash, Groovy Grape, Watermelon Burst. So basically the argument here is that, as you can see, they're labeling them like candy. They got like cartoon characters and stuff on them because obviously it's meant to appeal to kids. And, maybe some parents like that because they're like, oh, cool, it makes my kids actually want to brush their teeth. But that's the thing, is they're selling you on some sugary taste while claiming they're going to clean your teeth at the same time. And it's got your favorite cartoon characters on it when it's a freaking poison. So the thread continues, and it's cool because he puts a link to everything, all the different complaints. Like it says up here, 6 class action lawsuits have been filed. So here's a complaint against Procter & Gamble, who's the manufacturer of Crest kids toothpaste, and he puts kids in quotations, and they've got pictures here. We'll just go through them. You can kind of see the marketing. It's clear, like it's for the kid. This one literally is like a Crest logo on a baby bottle. So they're suing them for advertising and saying that their marketing and their advertising is marketed directly to kids to get kids attracted and interested in it, while it's also a poison. Here's the complaint against Perrigo Company, the manufacturer of Act Kids Mouthwash. Here's the complaint against Chatham Incorporated, the manufacturer of Firefly Kids Mouthwash. And in quotations, he writes, perhaps the single most egregiously deceptive fluoride product on the market in the U.S. today. And it's got like Buzz Lightyear and some little kids Barbie girl, and then this little dogs from, what is this, Paw Patrol. So clearly marketing to kids. And here's a complaint against Colgate/Palmolive for its Colgate and Tom's of Maine kids toothpaste. And they've got Watermelon Burst and Silly Strawberry flavor. Here's the complaint against Colgate/Palmolive for kids mouthwashes, which are both Colgate and Tom's of Maine brands. They got a unicorn on it. And he says, we also filed a complaint against Hello Products for its kids' fluoride mouthwashes, but I do not yet have a stamped copy of the filed complaint. To learn more about these actions, read here. And then also Bloomberg Law covered the case as well. I've got that open up in another tab. And then without further ado, here's the complaint against Hello Products for its kids' fluoride mouth washes. So yeah, pretty awesome. 6 new lawsuits filed against these companies. And if I understand the way this works, and this is why I want to interview Michael to find out how you might be able to get involved. These are class action lawsuits. Maybe some of you out there are using these products in your kids, and hopefully not any of you. Hopefully you guys all realize like you want to give your kids fluoride-free toothpaste, and you want to not be drinking fluoridated water for your young ones. But if you are, then maybe you have a spot in this in this class action lawsuit. But overall, I think that is good news there. We need attorneys like Michael Connett. It's not my game. I'm the journalist, but journalists and attorneys often work together and collaborate in different ways. And Michael is a brilliant, brilliant guy. So I think he's perfect to be not only continuing the fight against the EPA for the fluoridation lawsuit against them, but also raising awareness about the ways that the advertisers are marketing to children. I think that's an important aspect. I actually hadn't even specifically considered that element. I just, generally speaking, figured there's going to be class action lawsuits. Parents are going to be able to claim, hey, the CDC, the FDA, the EPA, they've been recommending this poison for years, and I've been giving it to my kids, so you owe me money. Well, it sounds like there might be a potential for that, starting with the advertisers and the brands themselves who are promoting that. I think that's a great idea. All right, guys, we're going to play a quick clip. I'm going to be right back. We're going to talk about geoengineering. Then we're going to talk about Donald Trump's incoming administration. I've got a clip from my recent conversation with Ryan Christine of The Last American Vagabond. And today we will be doing the What's Derrick Reading segment of the show. I'm going to show you a book I'm reading this week. And then we're going to end today with the debut of my brand new song, which is not even released till tomorrow, but I'm going to share it with you guys. If you've watched this show before, you know I always share a conscious musician at the end of the show. And I'm going to do that again today. It's also a way for me to promote my music lately, because I've got a lot what I've been working on. I've got a brand new song called Unwritten that I'm excited to share. It officially comes out tomorrow. It will be on all the podcasting platforms and all my channels. I'll upload it to. But I'm going to play it tonight. So if you guys stay tuned to that, we will be right back. You're listening to The Conscious Resistance Live.
Are you using your phone, or is it using you? Rise above mass surveillance and discover a phone that protects your privacy and communications.
Above Phone does everything your old phone does, without tracking you, while giving you complete control over your phone and apps. We are better than big tech. It works with any cell service. No forced logins. No advertising or tracking. Download apps privately. Control your phone and its apps with secure hardware. Introducing Above Suite. Protects your internet traffic. Private email on any device. Video call with friends privately. Encrypted chat, calls, and internet phone. Protect your searches and get results. Don't worry if you're new. Every phone includes a free 45-minute live call. You also get free email and chat support, free guides, and video courses. We can take back our technology. We're here to help with tools and education. You have the power.
Rise above with Above Phone.
AbovePhone.com.
Awesome. All right. So let's get into some comments. First of all, Peaceful Penguin says, I really loved your collaboration with Presence. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. For those who haven't heard that song, it's called Taxation is Theft. And guess what, Penguin? The song I'm releasing tonight also has Presence on it. We did a little back and forth. He wrote the first song, Taxation is Theft, and he allowed me to do a verse on that. And that was like, me coming into his world. This time I found a beat and, wrote the song and everything. And he wrote a verse for it and he did some of the production. So we're going to play that tonight before we get out of here. I appreciate that. Also, I saw a little bit in the comments over on YouTube, somebody saying, how can you have 63,000 subscribers and only 17 people live over on YouTube? Thankfully, there are other people live on other platforms, but this is the shadow banning, man. I definitely think I have been shadow banned. And as Rika mentioned a moment ago, I was deleted for 4 years. In October 2020, I was deleted off YouTube. And I don't think I've ever recovered that audience. So I was starting to have some pretty rapid growth at that point because some of my videos on fluoride and my documentary about Jeffrey Epstein from 2018 and my documentary on the Finders and the 5G. All of that, I think, was starting to reach a lot of people. And I was deleted in October 2020. And then randomly, they just gave me the channel back a couple months ago. So don't know why, but I really haven't seen much growth. It's been stuck at 63. Like I just I don't even try to pay attention to it anymore. Like I was sharing earlier, for those who were tuned in earlier, there is this sort of internal struggle between like chasing the numbers and becoming obsessive about it in one way, like how many likes, how many people are paying attention to my show or tuned into what I'm doing. And of course, there's some ego involved in that. I'm not going to deny that. But also for me, it's more driven by like, I want to help people. I want the more people I can reach, the more likely I believe I can help people find better solutions and empower themselves rather than just listen to the fucking Joe Rogans or the Luke Rakowskis or the Ian Carrolls and the others who I do think for whatever good intention they may have, are afraid to talk about certain topics, and I just do whatever I do. And in fact, YouTube still gives me strikes on this channel. There's a chance this channel will get taken down again at some point. This is why everybody should always follow me at theconsciousresistance.com. You should sign up for my email list so that I can actually stay in touch with you, or follow me on Odyssey or follow me on somewhere else. But ultimately, my website's the best place. So I do appreciate all of you who tune in, because it is fucking frustrating to feel like, all the effort I put in sometimes might not be reaching the amount of people that it could. But then the other thing, before we get into the next story, I was talking about the People's Reset earlier and the importance of coming together in person. When I'm in person with other people, man, I don't even think about the trolls on the internet. I don't even think about all the stupid debates I was having with so-and-so, which may have not even been a real person. Maybe it was a freaking Mossad troll. I realized, oh my God, my work is reaching people. When I travel, when I go out and meet people face to face, as I'm going to 2 weeks here in Mexico for the People's Reset. Next month, in February, I'll be in LA for the Conscious Life Expo. In February, I'll be in Costa Rica for 2 different events. When I go to talk to people and connect to people face to face, and people are like, oh, I've watched you on this channel, or I saw this, it makes me realize I can't trust the internet numbers. I can't trust the numbers they're telling me, because in a way, that's part of the psychological warfare too. They want people like me to be like, nobody's paying attention, nobody's listening. Why are you bothering? You might as well give up, right? And sometimes I do feel that way. Lately, it's been a little bit of a mental struggle of like, oh man, I'm, like I said earlier, trying to keep up with what's hot and trending, and also trying to focus on the bigger picture, right? So it is frustrating seeing the manipulation of the numbers. I don't trust it. And I love connecting with you guys in person, because it reminds me that my work is reaching people, even if it feels sometimes lonely out here on the internet. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our next story, geoengineering. This is another topic that I've been covering for quite some time, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I do want to mention it because I think it's an important story. This actually happened last month in December, but I didn't see anybody else talking about it, so I figured I need to write about it. The European Union's scientific advisors call for a moratorium on solar geoengineering and aerosol injection. And I know that the funny thing is, like, some of the responses I've been seeing when I share this article around is, well, Derrick, how can they have a moratorium on something that they claim they're not even doing? And I get it. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but the reality is that they're still not claiming they're doing it. This is the European Union claiming that there should be a moratorium on further research into geoengineering. And for those who are new into this topic, geoengineering, I think, is the better word to use. I personally don't use the word chemtrails. I know people think that might be useful, or that's just like, it's a specific description of chemical trails. I understand. But I do think in many circles, in many cases, it will make you sound crazy. And I always think strategically about how I can reach people. And the fact is, what we might call chemtrails or weather modification is known as geoengineering. It is a specific science of engineering the geo, the earth, the planet, the biology, really, what it comes down to, because they're trying to modify us as well and make us genetically engineered humans with maybe putting in nanobots and smart dust and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. What it comes down to, though, is that geoengineering is a specific science, and there's different ways to do it. There's also, like, I've written about this before too, that if I was to discuss this, I would say that let's put weather modification as the bigger, broader bubble, or like the kind of banner. Weather modification is what all these things fit under. Under weather modification, you have something called cloud seeding, and cloud seeding has been admitted and known for a long time. Yeah, a lot of normies don't even know about it, but there was cloud seeding during the Vietnam War and other times. Operation Popeye, I believe, and others. You can go out and find document information. A lot of people don't know about that. So that's weather modification. You got cloud seeding. I would say that's the most benign. I'm not going to say harmless, but I think the most benign type of weather modification, climate modification that has been happening for decades, for 60 years now, and going back. And I've written about this as well, that at least since the late 1800s, people were studying how to modify weather. And the US government started studying how to modify hurricanes as well. I reported on that years ago. So in addition to that, under weather modification, you also have geoengineering. And then under geoengineering, you would have things like solar radiation management, which is, or aerosol injection. That's what most people consider chemtrails. But geoengineering also does include other things like ocean deacidification, just different things. So it's not just what we call chemtrails. This is like a broader, bigger science. But if you were trying to be direct and specific, we would be using the word solar geoengineering or stratospheric aerosol injection. I know that's a lot of words there, but solar geoengineering is basically what we're talking about. And that is where they spray chemicals and compounds out of planes in order to try to block the sun's light in some alleged attempts to try to reduce what they call as climate change. So here's the story. A group of scientists and policymakers have recommended the European Union support a Europe-wide moratorium on using a controversial geoengineering technique known as solar geoengineering. The scientists warn that the benefits and risks of solar geoengineering proposals are, quote, highly uncertain, and they state that deploying this technology could impact the climate in different parts of the world and, quote, would be difficult to predict and difficult to manage in practice. They also said that any future research on solar geoengineering should be rigorous, ethical, and explicit about the uncertainties, and that they should reassess the risks and opportunities every 5 to 10 years. So this was released in December 2024 by what's called the Scientific Advice Mechanism, which is, I'd never even heard of this, and I doubt most people, even in the EU, have heard of this, but the Scientific Advice Mechanism is an organization which provides allegedly independent scientific evidence and policy recommendations to the College of European Commissioners. The Scientific Advice Mechanism is made up of 3 subgroup organizations, including the Group of Chief Scientific Advisors, who are 7 scientists whose whole job is to make recommendations to the EU. So it is that group of chief scientific advisors that wrote this report for the EU and released it in 2024, just a month ago. And as I said, there has been support and opposition to geoengineering technologies. You have like these scientists like David Keith over at Harvard, who's been trying to do geoengineering testing. You've got people starting to push back, like Tennessee passed a law that mentioned geoengineering that a lot of people were talking about last year. So the support and the resistance to geoengineering has been growing. Now, again, in the mainstream perspective, they claim they're not doing any of this already. They claim that what we call chemtrails, or what I think is actual secret geoengineering programs, they claim that we're just nuts, that that's just normal contrails from regular planes, even though they're not flying in a pattern that makes any sense, and they're doing X's and marks in the sky. That would be solar radiation management or solar geoengineering. Again, as I said, SAI is stratospheric aerosol injection, which is a specific solar geoengineering practice involving spraying aerosols into the sky in an attempt to deflect the sun's rays. They've talked about spraying strontium, barium, and aluminum, among other things, to block sunlight and send it back. And so this report from the EU Scientific Advice Mechanism says, quote, for decades, technologies have been proposed that would reduce or counteract global warming by reflecting sunlight away from the Earth. These proposals, known as solar radiation modification technologies, include stratospheric aerosol injection, cloud brightening, and others. That's what I was mentioning earlier. There's a few types of these. And so the scientists warn that, quote, they could have negative impacts on ecosystems, change rainfall patterns, and hamper food production. And, quote, any large-scale intervention in our common planetary environment would have systemic consequences. And I feel like I'm a freaking broken record. I know I'm not the only one out there, because there's many other people who've been paying attention to this for a while now. But I wrote articles in 2016 talking about studies that were saying that geoengineering could cause the loss of blue skies and things like that, because and you could create, like, maybe you could lower the temperature in one area, but then also you might create a drought in another place or massive rainfall in another area, right? It's unpredictable. So the only kind of conflict that we have here between the conspiracy theorists and the mainstream folks and scientists is that they say solar geoengineering is only in the research phase and not in live research, like just in the lab. We're just thinking and testing things on computer models and stuff like that. They claim there's no actual geoengineering programs, whereas the people who are believers in the so-called chemtrails conspiracy theory say, it looks like those planes sure are doing patterns in the sky and spraying things on random times and random days and locations all around the world. And the mainstream says, those are just contrails. You guys are just stupid. You don't understand science. It forms ice crystals. And yes, that is true. But you can tell the difference between a contrail and something that lasts and just hangs there. And then in a couple hours, it's just dragged out by the wind into these wide, quote unquote, clouds. And then before you know it, it might rain the next day or something like that. People are seeing this stuff all over the world. And so that's like the main difference, though, is that according to the mainstream, this is only in the research phase. There's no live active programs going on. The rest of us crazy people who think that something that we're seeing in the sky doesn't look normal, well, I guess we're just nuts. But nevertheless, that is why I write articles like that, because I want to reach the person who maybe even somebody who thinks that we are crazy and they're like, oh, there's no chemtrails, Derrick, that's not happening. You guys are a little bit nuts. Okay, well, even if you believe that, even if you don't believe the programs are actually happening, I'm going to convince you that it's a bad idea based on what's being said. So, because even if you just take the normie mainstream perspective, oh, these programs are only in the research phase, nothing's actually happening. Well, even according to their own research, it's not a good thing, and it's very dangerous, and people like freaking Bill Gates are trying to push it for different reasons. So you don't have to convince your friends necessarily in the chemtrails conspiracy theory, like right off the bat, if they're not willing to look up and see with their own eyes, which is what is obvious to the rest of us. Then help them see that even according to the mainstream, just say, hey, look, I know you care about climate change, right? I know that you're into that whole thing and you believe that the world's coming to an end. Well, guess what? One of the things that they're proposing is called geoengineering. It's called stratospheric aerosol injection. And according to some studies, this could cause a loss of blue skies. This could create droughts in Africa and other, countries in the global south. You care about indigenous people, don't you, right? You care about minority groups, don't you? Well, this idea that's being proposed, it is a horrible idea and it can lead to bad things. And then maybe with time, somebody might actually start to realize, wait, this sounds a lot like what those lines in the sky you keep telling me about. So, and for me, it's a very conscious and strategic way of trying to reach people. It's not an article that says the European Union calls for banning chemtrails, because that's only going to reach certain people and you won't be able to share that with your normie friends. So I wrote it in a way that is more accessible, hopefully. All right, let's talk about one of my other recent articles just really briefly before we get into Trump for tonight. This is an update on a previous investigation I did about NSO Group and spyware companies, which more and more people need to know about, because I mean, this is really, it's gotten bad, guys. Like, I don't think we've been far away from privacy for a long time. Let's just be real. But at the same time, the tools that are these companies and these intelligence agencies, and for the most part, we're talking about Israeli agencies, the Mossad and Unit 81, Unit A200, Tapiat program, they have access to spyware programs like the Pegasus project, like what is the other one I reported on recently, Paragon Solutions, and others that are getting some big contracts for the incoming Trump administration in the name of fighting illegal immigration. I mean, these companies, the access that they have is just insane, guys. I mean, it does make me really sad to just see how much data is out there and what tools are available, and that the average person, just the idea that we can even hide. I mean, I'm not trying to be completely hopeless, but I remember in 2013, I wrote an article about an FBI agent, a retired FBI agent who was on some news station, and he did an interview. I can't even remember what it was about. It might've been around the time the Snowden leaks or something in those days, 2011, 2012, 2013. And he said back then that the FBI had the ability to log every single digital communication. And so that was at least 12 years ago. And that was probably, a no-brainer at that point. I do think there are wonderful people, like I've interviewed Amir Taki of the DarkFi project and other crypto anarchists who are literally using magic math to create cryptography and protection. And so every time the state or some crazy company or some hacker creates the ability to get into your information, there are people like Amir who are trying to do the opposite and give people protection against those invasive forces. So I do believe that there is positive, but it's definitely getting bad, guys. If it's been bad for a while. A California court recently ruled against the Israeli firm NSO Group, which has become infamous for hacking numerous encrypted platforms. In late December, the Northern District of California ruled against Israeli spyware firm NSO Group, finding the controversial firm liable for hacking and a breach of contract. Why? Because NSO Group illegally accessed WhatsApp servers. And, did I mention that NSO Group is from Israel, and their spyware, which is just, for those who don't know, it's software that obviously is intended to spy and to infiltrate your device. And in some ways, one of the ways hackers and governments have been able to get to our stuff is through like phishing. Like they'll send you a link that looks like it's for Facebook or PayPal or your bank or whatever, and they'll tell you, hey, we have and need some information from you. There was an error in your account. Please click here and give us that info. And when you click it, you're basically giving whoever it is, government, intelligence agency, hacker, access to your device. And then from there, they can get in and do all kinds of stuff without you even knowing. There's also things like keystroke programs where they can literally log everything you're typing. So even if they can't see exactly what you're doing, it could be a program that's sending back data to somebody, telling them everything you're typing, including passwords and stuff like that. There's a million other ways. But when it comes to spyware, and this specifically, what we're talking about is zero-click exploits. So literally, they don't even have to infiltrate, like physically get your device. They don't even have to send you a phishing link. They can just access it remotely. So NSO Group uses malicious spyware known as Pegasus to infiltrate and monitor devices and extract information using what are known as zero-click exploits. This means that a user does not need to click on a link or download a program for a hacker to access their devices. Instead, Pegasus exploits existing software like WhatsApp servers. So they went directly into WhatsApp servers. And in this case, the NSO Group, they have now been found liable for hacking journalists and employees at El Faro, an independent publication which primarily serves Central America. The NSO Group and their clients, using their spyware, used zero-click exploits to install Pegasus on iPhones of 22 employees of this independent media outlet from June 2020 to November 2021. So they use zero-click access and install this on iPhones of 22 employees working at this journalism outlet so they can spy on them. And the court found that the NSO Group had exceeded its authorized access to WhatsApp servers and breached WhatsApp's terms of service by transmitting its infiltration code and learning information about targeted devices using WhatsApp servers. And the court found the NSO Group liable under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the California Comprehensive Computer Data Access and Fraud Act, and breach of contract. And in 2025, later this year, there's going to be further hearings to discuss damages of what kind of compensation these journalists and activists get and what, if anything, happens to WhatsApp. But I mean, the point is, like, they can pretty much do that, right? Like, so who cares if you fine them $100 million, $1 billion, whatever? That technology exists, right? And it's not going away. The Electronic Privacy Information Center called the ruling a, quote, win for the journalists, activists, politicians, and everyday users that NSO Group targets to help authoritarian governments. The Environmental Privacy Information Center, they supported the lawsuit against the NSO Group, and they had filed a brief, and they're saying that, quote, unlike a one-click attack, which requires a target to click on a link in order to trigger the attack, a zero-click attack downloads and installs spyware on the target's device without the target's involvement or awareness, making it all but impossible for even sophisticated smartphone users to prevent or detect attacks. They go on to say the Pegasus attacks not only caused the plaintiffs serious personal harms, but also upended their professional lives. The plaintiffs have fundamentally altered how they use their iPhones, making it considerably more costly and time-consuming to conduct the in-depth independent reporting for which they are known. So just an example of how this is really happening and how it affects people in the real world, that journalists, and activists. There was also there's more people speaking up about it. Thankfully, people are noticing this, but I don't think there's enough. And like I said, I mean, what are they really going to do? How do you protect people from this? Not just journalists and activists, but just any regular person. And it's not just the Israeli firms. Although I will say, in my previous reporting of the spyware industry, I did find that at least 60% of the companies were Israeli firms. So it's a pretty big, industry based out of Israel and the Mossad. And if you are not familiar with the NSO group and the Pegasus Pegasus project, you can go read the rest of this article. I describe that. I talk about Paragon Solutions. Like I said, I recently reported on them as well, and how some of these companies are getting contracts with the Trump administration because it seems like the Immigration and Customs Enforcement is going to use spyware to spy on people or to try to locate them to make sure they can kick them out of the country. And that's usually how this stuff happens, right? They're going to tell people they're going to save us from all the brown people and the bad immigrants. And that's not to downplay that there have been real fucked up crimes by illegal immigrants. There have been, and that's a real thing. But more government's not the answer. And even if you thought the government was the answer, they're lying to you. They're just trying to sell you the technocratic deep state. And you're buying it, or a lot of you are. Hopefully not most of my regular listeners here, but a lot of you are, especially on freaking X, where it's just like Trumpville everywhere. It's insane. But this actually is a perfect lead into our next and final story of the night, and that is the incoming Trump administration. So we're going to take a real quick break and then play a clip from myself with Ryan Christian, and we're going to be back with all of my thoughts on Trump's inauguration and who's coming into office and whether or not you should trust him. I think you can probably guess how I feel, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Live. So I've recently partnered with my friend Sean Hawkins of the company Cultivated Mind. He focuses on organic mushroom extracts, which are designed to help you physically, mentally, and maybe even more than that. I've just been testing them out recently. You may have seen my interview with Sean discussing this. We went over some of the specific benefits of the various types of mushrooms that Sean uses. I think it's a really exciting product to be a part of because not only are they organic, they're non-GMO, but if you know anything about mushrooms, as more and more of us have been learning about the benefits of mushrooms, not just psychedelic mushrooms, but all types of mushrooms, then you understand that they are a great boon to your health. So Sean recently hooked me up and I've been trying the Brain Squared, which is for gut pea flower extract, ashwagandha. I also recently picked up the Radiant Energy, which is for pre and post workout. So I go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and now starting to take these before and after. These feature cordyceps, reishi, and chaga. And finally, he's got Immune Renew, which is obviously for immunity. This one features chaga, turkey tail, reishi, maitake, shiitake, and extract of nattokinase. I encourage you to go visit the website. It is cultivated-mind.com. And of course, we have a special deal and a discount for those of you who want to purchase them through my link at cultivated-mind.com/cm/broze, BROZE. You can check out the link on the screen right now, or wherever you're watching, check out the link below the video.
It directly overlaps with the spyware, with the biometric tracking, with the border conversation, and even with the drone point. Because how do you think they're going to be using biometric tracking?
Number 8, we will finally complete the biometric entry-exit visa tracking system, which we need desperately. For years, Congress has required biometric entry-exit visa tracking systems, but it has never been completed. The politicians are all talk, no action, never happens, never happens. Hillary Clinton, all talk. Unfortunately, when there is action, it's always the wrong decision. Do you ever notice? In my administration, we will ensure that this system is in place. And I will tell you, it will be on land, it will be on sea, it will be in air. We will have a proper tracking system.
What are your thoughts on that? What we're talking about today.
Yeah, so first of all, it brings up a few different things, man. And like after I wrote that article about Biden and I was going deeper into the immigration issue, it is a complex issue. I'll give it that, right? There are some dumb, obvious moves that have been made that, like I said earlier, set you up for failure. And so it's like, okay, change those policies. Well, one of the policies that the Biden administration changed, which Trump appears to be saying he's going to fix, of course, he's going to go above and beyond, and it's going to be completely, biometric wall, smart wall, et cetera. Though, is the fact that the Biden administration, and I think it actually started during the Obama administration, but it continued for sure during the Biden administration, that they ended the practice of DNA collection for sponsors. So as I write in that article, when there's an unaccompanied migrant child that comes across, they hold him, and sometimes maybe they have notes or something, or they have some sort of information, and they're supposed to find them a sponsor, which is, in the best case, a family member that's in the United States, and they connect them, they prove, okay, this is your family member, you know each other, IDs are shown, they do background checks, like that. Those are all the things that the Biden administration stopped doing. But they're supposed to do background checks, and that is supposed to include some level of biometrics, probably a DNA test of some sort. And those policies were ended or reversed under Biden and Obama. So I asked myself, because obviously we both see the danger in what Trump is talking about there, land, sea, and air, biometrics, all the stuff that many of us are fighting. And I understand that, and I can see that. And then from the other side of how do we fix the immigration problem? How do we solve this not knowing if a child coming across and the person that says, oh yeah, I swear this is my nephew or my niece or whatever. And there's all kinds of crazy cases that the kid's showing up looking drugged. The kid's like clearly trafficking situation going on. And there was people trying to warn them. All those different mechanisms that are supposed to be there to protect the children failed or were ignored, et cetera. And I think we can safely assume by design. But I guess what I'm getting at is here, it's how do we solve that problem without promoting more biometrics? Like, what I mean? Like, I don't know what the perfect answer is in that case, because obviously I'm against Trump, wanting to do full on biometrics, and because from there, like you already said, it's going to expand. It starts with voting, and then it goes, you got to use it everywhere. Then it becomes, you got to use it to get on the internet and whatever else. Right. And at the same time, immigrants aren't going to stop coming to the U.S. even if they slow it down and Trump does a big deportation operation. There will always be immigration, legal and illegal. It's just part of having a border. And how do we improve that situation? We're not going to solve that right here, but that's just where my mind goes. It's like, damn, we're like kind of stuck in between, a rock and a hard place. Like, we don't want to promote biometrics. And at the same time, that seems like that might be one way, DNA testing or something, some level of, more than they're doing now. At the very least, a background check, like show a picture with this person and a family member or something, right? So yeah, that's kind of where my mind went on that whole thing, is just how do we fix one problem without encouraging the solution we know they want to promote, which we know will lead bad places. All right, so that was a clip from my interview with Ryan Christine of Last American Vagabond, which was released maybe a week or two ago. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying there. Like that I think that the predator class, and they're not in control of everything. They don't control every aspect of our life. But I do think when it comes to different situations, as we know, you never let a good crisis go to waste. And so they will take advantage of situations. And in this case, as I've been telling people for a while, you get people raising, hell, like immigration is bad. There's all these violent criminals coming across, showing people all day, look at the caravans coming from Guatemala and from Mexico, which are real. And these are all military age men. Maybe they're coming from China. Did Iran sneak some nukes across the border? All this kind of propaganda, which has been promoted a lot on X from people like Sean Ryan. I don't know if you guys have been tuned into any of this stuff. With that interview that came out a week or two ago about the Cybertruck, and claiming that, the guy who did it was related to the military, which he was, and something about UFOs and anti-gravitic technology. Well, things like that are going viral. And along with that, claims that, well, maybe Iran snuck some nuclear weapons across the border. The point is, people have been so freaked out and so like hysteria, some real and a lot of it fake and imagined and exaggerated, that now people are like, please, yes, whatever it takes, put drones all across the border. Put facial recognition cameras on towers, put, biometric entry and exit system, just keep us safe. Problem, reaction, solution. So I do believe for sure that the immigration issue has been allowed to fester. I mean, literally, when you're looking at the decisions that were made in the Trump and Obama, the Obama and the Biden administration, and to some degree in the Trump, but definitely a lot less, it just doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't make these decisions, like removing the verification process for finding out if somebody is actually related to a child, when somebody shows up with a baby in hand and says, yeah, this is my daughter. I'm here to pick her up or whatever. You wouldn't do that unless you wanted things to get more fucked up, because it just doesn't make any sense. Nevertheless, that's just one piece of the puzzle. Let's go through. I've got a few links here pulled up. I think you should be paying attention to during the Donald Trump administration. And I do want to say this too, like I said earlier, don't trust the people in independent media who are ignoring these things. I'm just being real. You cannot trust these people. If they are telling you that you should trust Elon Musk and trust Donald Trump and trust Peter Thiel and trust JD Vance and all the people connected to Peter Thiel, who's a steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group, who's a co-founder of Palantir, which is trying to see everything in the world and working with the military industrial complex to survey us, just like the spyware company we were just talking about, NSO Group. Palantir is up there with the worst of them. If you have people you are listening to or you see them across your social media feeds, stop following them. Punish them by unliking them and unsubscribing them, because they are feeding you fucking garbage propaganda to try to get you to support your own enslavement. This is what I've been calling the great inversion for at least the last year. The fake awakening, getting the right and conservatives and many truthers to accept the technocratic state and believe that they are actually fighting it. So I got a few things pulled up here. This is from back in November. I'm over here on Twitter. Trump pledges immediate arms freedom for Israel. This is right after he got elected. President-elect Donald Trump has pledged to immediately lift all existing restrictions and delays on the transfer of weapons and military equipment to Israel upon taking office. This statement was made following discussions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Critics and supporters are evaluating blah, blah. So here it is. There's people talking all about it. Now, why am I bringing this up? This is 2 months ago, right? In recent days, I've seen people saying, oh, but look, Trump shared a video interview with, who is it, Jeffrey Sachs, or one of these guys that so many of you are falling for. And it was a video criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu, and Trump shared it. So that means he's going to be against Israel. It's like, let's just try to read into his social media posts what we want instead of literally listening to his own words, where he said that he's going to remove all export restrictions and delays which were imposed by the Biden-Harris administration. And in reality, the Biden-Harris administration was sending Israel all kinds of weapons, some of the biggest weapons packages ever. So Trump wants to go even further. So that's one thing to pay attention to. Trump is a freaking outright Zionist, and everybody around him and connected to him is as well. And here's David Icke sharing this one. The free speech man speaks. Who decides what is anti-Semitism? His masters do. And this was somebody retweeting a statement from Trump. This is back in November, right after the election. My first week back in the Oval Office, my administration will inform every college president that if you do not end anti-Semitic propaganda, they will lose their accreditation and federal taxpayer support. We will not subsidize the creation of terrorist sympathizers, and we're certainly not going to do it on American soil. Next, I will inform every educational institution in our land that if they permit violence, harassment, or threats against Jewish students, the schools will be held accountable for violations of civil rights law. Trump is a freaking Zionist. There's no way around it. I mean, it's not about hating Jewish people. I think people who hate Jewish people have fallen for another psyop, but it's about recognizing that this is a country that you can't even question. Even there was Thomas Massey shared recently, I think last week, that the House voted on a bill which would, now I'm not a big supporter of the International Criminal Court or any sort of globalist international organizations, but yes, people like Benjamin Netanyahu and war criminals like George Bush should be held accountable by somebody. And so the idea was that the International Criminal Court was supposed to do that. Of course, they don't go after anybody from the West. They just go after like African warlords and stuff like that. Nevertheless, because of South Africa and I think Ireland and a couple other nations who are standing up, they issued a warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu for his genocide against the Palestinian people, and now expanding into Syria and of course, just go Lebanon, getting worse and worse, right? And so because of that, the U.S. government, the U.S. House last week, besides Thomas Massey, apparently voted to admonish and to, I think, like sanction. I don't know if they can sanction the International Criminal Court or to remove funding or something, but basically just to say, International Criminal Court, you're bad because you're saying that Netanyahu is a war criminal. Well, he fucking is, okay? Now let's keep going. This is reported by the New York Times in the days after the Trump administration won. Israeli right pushing to annex West Bank sees allies in Trump's picks. Arab Americans and liberal Jewish voters, however, have ample reason to fear the naming of pro-settlement, pro-Netanyahu officials to top foreign policy posts in the new administration. And so obviously we got Marco Rubio, who's been a long time freaking neocon and, establishment puppet. Representative Elise Stefanik of New York as ambassador to the United Nations, also a hardcore Zionist. Former Governor Mike Huckabee of Arkansas as ambassador to Israel, also a Zionist. Stephen C. Witkoff, real estate developer and golf buddy of Trump, also a Zionist, now appointed special envoy to the Middle East. And it goes on and on. He's surrounded by Zionists. Let's see who else we got here. Let's get into that one in a second. Here, this lady, Tulsi Gabbard, another lady that so many people out there are falling for. She, back in 2023, so not a long time ago, she said that the rally in Israel was a powerful experience and she was full of hope. And she discussed the anti-Israel sentiment from some members of her former party, because she's no longer an anti-Israel Democrat. Now she's a pro-Israel Republican, basically went from independent all the way to Republican. And she also, for those who don't get it, because she's got a little silver in her hair and she's a surfer, she's so cool, we can all relate to her. I guarantee you part of that is fucking marketing to make her seem appealing to a lot of people. Here's a somewhat pretty lady who's a millennial and surfer and's got a silver streak in her hair. We can trust her. Pay no attention to her lying about World Economic Forum connections and the CFR connections, which I confronted her about. If you guys haven't seen that, go to theconsciousresistance.com. But she's an outright Zionist. She also is pushing this post 9/11 George Bush era propaganda about, radical Islam. And not to say there aren't any radical Islamists out there. Obviously there are, but there's also people who are trained and promoted by the CIA. And that threat was pumped up in the Bush era, of course, to justify war. She's part of that whole thing. She's part of promoting that we need to be hard on radical Islam and protect Israel at all costs and this sort of stuff. And even just in the last week, she's made it clear, because now her nomination is coming up and she's got to, give in and do whatever she wants, whatever they say, so she can win. And of course, my argument would be that was the goal the whole time. But nevertheless, now she's saying she will support the FISA secret surveillance courts. The ones that Trump railed against for years and said were used against him. But then when he got into office, he did nothing but support them and allow them to continue. And that she said she was going to rein in as the next director of national intelligence. But now, because her nomination might be under threat, okay, I'll back off that, guys. Just let me get in there. And of course, some of you are going to make excuses. Well, Derek, that's how politics work. You got to play the game. If you're going to get in there and make any change, they have to fulfill Trump's agenda. It's bullshit. And you're falling for it again. And you're fucking retarded if you keep doing it. Whoops. Sorry. Did that come out? Who else we got here? Okay, so Michael Tracy, he tweeted this one. This is another Scott Bessent, billionaire hedge fund manager who raised tens of millions for Trump and was previously the chief investment officer of the Soros Fund Management, has been named Treasury Secretary. The great populist anti-establishment revolution continues apace. Okay, Trump's pick for Jim O'Neill is the number 2 at HHS. So we got Robert F. Kennedy nominated for HHS. If it even happens, we'll see what he does. But who's his number 2? Jim O'Neill, a close associate of early Trump backer Peter Thiel for HHS Deputy Secretary. Trump said he will oversee in all operations and improve management, transparency, and accountability to make America healthy again. And he will be the right-hand man of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. if he is chosen. Well, who is this guy? Well, he's the former CEO of the Thiel Foundation. Who's the Thiel Foundation? That's Peter Thiel's literal foundation. And this comes years after O'Neill was in the mix for Trump's first FDA commissioner in his first term. O'Neill has ties to Silicon Valley and previously served as HHS Principal Associate. Listen to this title, Principal Associate Deputy Secretary during the George W. Bush administration. He is noted for his role in co-founding the Thiel Fellowship and his time at the CEO of anti-aging nonprofit SENS Research Foundation, which is also related to Peter Thiel. So he sits on the former CEO of the Thiel Foundation, co-founder of the Thiel Fellowship, worked in the Bush administration, looking like a great pick here, guys. Let's see. We also got them writing about him here in the Washington Post. Jim O'Neill, Silicon Valley investor, favored for HHS Deputy Secretary. And there's another gentleman. Let me point this one out. So Trump, I posted this December 24th. So Trump named Ken Howry as his pick for the U.S. ambassador to Kingdom of Denmark. Howry previously served as a U.S. ambassador to Sweden, and Trump wrote that he served our nation brilliantly in that role. The connections between Howry and Peter Thiel and the WEF, the World Economic Forum, run deep. Apparently, Trump sees these connections as a good thing. Trump wrote, as a co-founder of PayPal and venture capital fund Founders Fund, which I've written about, the Founders Fund is founded by Peter Thiel with connections to Eric Schmidt. Both of them are steering committee members of the Bilderberg Group. Ken turned American innovation and tech leadership into global success stories. For the purposes of national security and freedom throughout the world, the United States of America feels that the ownership and control of Greenland is an absolute necessity. Thank you, Ken, and congratulations. And so when I pointed this out, some people are like, well, who cares? You know, he's an ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark. What does that matter? But then it started to make sense. All this talk about Trump saying the U.S. is going to purchase Greenland. Well, Greenland is a vassal state of the Kingdom of Denmark. And Denmark keeps saying, you know, we're going to protect Greenland. It's not for sale. Greenland saying we're not for sale. Well, that makes more sense now when you see that Trump picked a Peter Thiel WEF acolyte to be the ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark, probably so he can be in a position to facilitate the deal to get the U.S. Greenland, if that indeed does happen. So let's just look at his Wikipedia page here real quick. Kenneth Allen Howry, as I mentioned, early life and education here. He graduated from Stanford University, and while he was at Stanford, he was the managing editor of the Stanford Review, a student-run newspaper founded by Peter Thiel. Wow. I mean, you can't make this shit up. He's also the co-founder of PayPal and the Founders Fund. Like I said, he previously served ambassador to Sweden for Trump in his first administration. Now he's coming back to be the ambassador to Denmark and help us secure Greenland. Why? Probably because Peter Thiel and people like Elon Musk could really use a lot of the rare minerals that are underneath the ground in Greenland. And this dude it's not like he's just a business associate with him. They've been friends since their Stanford days. Back in the late 90s, they wrote the Stanford Review together. So they've been buddies for almost 30 years now. Now, what else does he got in his bio here? The same year he graduated, he co-founded PayPal with Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and some other folks, Max Levchin, Luke Nosik. The group of co-founders became known as the PayPal Mafia. And he was PayPal's CFO from 1998 to 2002. He served as eBay's director of corporate development until 2003, once they bought eBay. He then rejoined Peter Thiel at the Clarium Capital Management, where he served as a vice president of private equity, as well as a member of the research. In March 2012, he was named World Economic Forum Young Global Leader, a community of socially minded men and women under the age of 40. He is also a member of the selection committee for the World Economic Forum's Technology Pioneers program. And in 2005, Howry and Peter Thiel started the Founders Fund, a San Francisco-based venture capital firm, and on from there. He has lectured at Harvard and Stanford on business and UC Berkeley, et cetera, et cetera. So you got Ken Howry, you got Jim O'Neill, you got Scott Bessent, connected to Soros. You got Tulsi Gabbard and others in the cabinet, Marco Rubio, Huckabee, all these others, Elise Stefanik, Stephen Witkoff, hardcore Zionists, Trump saying he's going to come after colleges if they don't go after the anti-Semites. He's going to remove all restrictions to gun sales and weapon sales to Israel. Oh, but cool. He's posting funny memes, or he's friends with Elon. They're going to save the day. And we're not even getting into the whole Elon thing. I've covered that, I think, at length. Anybody who's still falling for the Elon Musk hype is just probably asleep at this point, because the dude is literally promoting brain chips. He's promoting transhumanism. He's promoting or merging with the good AI in order to save the planet, et cetera. And I don't know. I don't want to say you get what you deserve, but it's kind of hard for me to see how people can't see this. And this brings me back to my point earlier. Why is it that certain media outlets, independent media outlets, won't mention Peter Thiel? I just barely scratched the surface there. I'm working on an article that I will release after these people are nominated, because there's no point in writing this article yet, and then some of them don't get chosen, which may happen. But either way, even if the names I just mentioned, the names that Trump originally chooses, don't get picked, it shows us who his allies are, and it shows us where his allegiances are. He's got $100 million plus backing from Miriam Adelson, the widow of Sheldon Adelson, one of the biggest Las Vegas Zionist billionaires around that are backing him. Peter Thiel has said that not only, we didn't even mention J.D. Vance, Trump's vice president, who literally his rise to the senator was funded by Peter Thiel. And Trump was funded by Peter Thiel the first time around. This time, Peter Thiel say he chose not to give him money, but indirectly he did give him money through different organizations. And he said, I'm doing anything I can to help them. And obviously he funded J.D. Vance, as I said, not to mention now that Trump wins, Ken Howard, all these different PayPal mafia. We didn't even mention David Sachs. He's a member of the PayPal mafia who's in head of the AI committee or something along those lines. This is literally the technocrats that I've been warning about since at least 2019 in my book. And before that, like they're in control. And that doesn't mean they wouldn't have been in control if Kamala Harris won. That's the whole fucking point I was making before the election, is that how can you try to act like any of this is going to end up differently when literally both sides are funded by the same people? Both sides. Zionists, check. Technocrats, check. Members of the Bilderberg Group, check. I mean, you can't get any more different than that. You can sure make your arguments about, yeah, Derrick, well, it's going to come a little slower under Trump, or yeah, well, I wanted to, try to stick it to the libs, or whatever the hell you come up with. The point is, we're still marching towards technocracy. This brings me back to my original point, the people's reset, getting involved in your own community, taking real actions, solutions, because you can't trust Trump and Elon and Peter Thiel and all these other fucking people who are leading you astray, Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, all these other people telling you to trust the politicians, Luke Rakowski, all these sellouts. You can't trust them. You can't trust them, and they're not going to help you. All they're trying to do is get you to keep watching, keep tuning in. We're winning. Trump's going to win for us. Or tell you every other video, civil war, red alert, emergency. That's what the entire space has become complete shit. There's a lot of good people doing good work, but there's so much garbage out there, and I just can't stand it. You need to take charge of your mind, your heart, and step away from those people who are trying to lead you astray. Look at the facts. You don't have to like me. You don't have to like my presentation. You don't have to like my articles or my books or my documentaries. Just look at the facts. You can hate me. You can dislike the way I report. Go follow somebody else, but follow the facts. And if people are telling you to trust Trump right now, yes, he's not in office yet. We got 6 days to go. But we know who he is based on his relationships, based on his first administration, based on who's funding him, and now based on who he's picking. You can make excuses all you want, but we can see it. It's right in front of our faces. The technocracy is staring us in the face. It's not left. It's not right. It's not fascism versus socialism or nationalism versus communism. It's technocracy. These people are inspired by the technocratic movement. And even the Department of Government and Efficiency harkens back to the efficiency movement, which was also an outgrowth of the progressive movement, which preceded the technocracy movement. Central planning, let's make government more efficient and make life more efficient. Even if that means we have to lose our freedoms, we have to have technocrats and the scientific elite leading things. And the crazy thing is the people like fucking Alex Jones and others are literally, I mean, not that we shouldn't have trusted Alex Jones a long time ago. He's betrayed people, the cause of liberty, a long time ago. And I proved this in the first Trump administration when I showed that Alex Jones from 2012 was reporting on the Bilderberg Group and people like former Governor of Texas, Rick Perry, and his attendance at the Bilderberg Group. But then when Trump picked him as his Secretary of Energy in 2016, what did Jones do? Nothing. Complete silence. Don't even mention. 4 years ago, this guy's bad. He's at Bilderberg Group. Question him. Well, Trump's picking him. Never mind. And now Jones is shilling for Elon Musk as hard as he can. And it's sad, but they're showing you who they are. This is the great reveal. This is the great inversion. Things are getting more and more inverted, and it's going to get more difficult. We are going to watch people we know and care about, who we think are awake and aware, sell out. And people you follow or you listen to or friends and family, they're going to fall for these traps. I'm not even talking about the people who aren't awake yet. I'm talking about people who think they're awake, and they're going to walk right into Elon's good AI and putting the brain chip in and trusting the biosecurity, the nano technocratic state that is coming into view, including with things like geoengineering, including with things like fluoride and dumbing us down. And then the larger part of this technological apparatus, like we showed you in the clip a moment ago, that Trump himself is saying they're going to have a biometric entry and exit system. We're getting closer to digital IDs. These things are not going away. And if you're listening to podcasters and YouTubers and whatever the fuck else, people who are telling you to just sit still and trust the plan and trust Trump and trust the billionaire technocrats, you need to find better sources. You need to take control of your life like yesterday, because it's not going to go away. I'm sorry. It's not just going to disappear. And voting's not going to fix it. And trusting Trump's not going to fix it. You actually have to get control of your life. You have to get off your ass. You have to get activated. You have to get motivated and say, I'm fucking alive. I'm awake. I'm a breathing, living human being. And I'm not going to fucking be sucked into slavery. I'm not going to allow myself and my family and the coming generations to suffer because I chose to do nothing. I can see the problem and I'm going to act. I'm going to channel the best of my lineage and of my ancestors who worked so hard through blood, sweat, and tears to get me here. And I'm going to channel that energy and I'm going to give it everything I fucking got, because being alive matters, and having liberty and keeping this very young seed of an idea of individual liberty, which hasn't even survived that long in humanity's history, keeping that alive for the coming generations is so important. And I'm going to push past my laziness. I'm going to push past my doubts and my fears and my insecurities. And I'm actually going to take control of my life and take control of my financial situation and take control of my mental situation and my health, so that I can at the very least make the effort to try to leave behind a better world for the coming generations. And maybe even knowing that we won't succeed, or perhaps we might get part of the way, but it's more important than anything. Nothing else matters, and it's worth the effort. At least that's where I'm coming from. Maybe I'm just crazy. Oh, all right. Maybe we should read some comments here. I'm just about done here, guys. We're going to wrap up in just a couple minutes. I'm going to play a brand new song for myself. If you haven't heard, I go by the name 33. I perform conscious hip hop, and we'll talk all about that in just a couple minutes. But some great comments here. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you. And I'm glad to know that many of you do see this, see what I'm saying. And yeah, they might have all been a part of an op. Maybe there was no selling out for many of these people. They may have been a long game playing. But I do know that people like Luke Rudkowski and others, knowing him personally and knowing people who worked with him, that they started chasing the MAGA crowd because they know that that's where they could get views. And they started chasing the safe topics. Like, I'm just going to do a 15-minute little read some articles for you and not do any in-depth stuff. Like, when's the last time you saw Luke Rudkowski go on the streets and actually confront a politician? That's something I do these days, and very few people do that. And I'm not just picking on Luke, but he's definitely one of the worst, I think. And so I'm grateful to everybody like Whitney Webb, Ryan, everybody in the Independent Media Alliance. Honestly, this is going to be a big year for the Independent Media Alliance. This is one of the reasons we're launching it. Not to say, hey, blindly trust all of us who are part of this. Catherine Austin Fitts, Patrick Wood, James Corbett, Steve with Slow News Day, Hjorve with Geopolitics and Empire, Charlie Robinson, Macroaggressions, the folks over at UK Column. I'm forgetting some people, Richard Grove. And it doesn't mean we all agree on every topic either, but we know that these people have been consistent. And 2025 is going to be a big year for the Independent Media Alliance. We've got a brand new website that's going to launch in just a few weeks, hopefully very soon. And it'll be a hub for you to come find all of our content, plus these panels that we've been doing, talking about these topics to show you that there's a false binary and that the left and the right are both pushing towards technocracy. You got to get out of that fake, false left-right paradigm, my friends. So, all right, let's talk about what I'm reading this week. This is a book. I might have talked about this one actually recently, but I ordered this one and I finally got it. It's called Investigative Journalism, A Survival Guide. And it's interesting because I do like to read all kinds of information. This is written by somewhat of a mainstream journalist, so I knew that there might be some propaganda to look out for, but I'm not the kind of person that's just going to throw the book away because this guy is wrong on some things. I think there's some good stuff to be gained. And so far it's been interesting because he's talking, this is a UK journalist and his name is David Lee. And he's talking about like how, as a journalist, how to think about your relationship with the intelligence agents. He has a chapter called Dealing with Spies and Spooks. And it's just interesting to hear from a mainstream journalist perspective, but actually a real investigative journalist, not just somebody who's just sitting on CNN and, you know, reading from a teleprompter, but actually hitting the ground. And I think this is one of the biggest flaws and gaps in independent media right now. Sure, there's thousands, tens of thousands now at this point of people across Rumble and YouTube and Odyssey who are just sitting there talking to you and being podcasters. Some of them are better than others. Some are better at interviewing. Some are better at investigating. But it's very rare to see people who hit the streets, who go to in-person events. I am one of those people, and I don't always see a lot of independent journalists there. Like I said, I was the only journalist there at the fluoride trial. This is a huge, federal lawsuit, and you would think that it would be covered not only by mainstream but by independent media. And unfortunately, there was nobody there. I was there at the Silk Road trial with Ross Ulbricht. I was there at Barrett Brown's trial in Dallas back in 2014. I was in Ferguson. I was at one of the biggest rallies in Virginia, the gun rally, where everybody came out for an open carry rally. I've been to 9/11 in New York City for many, many years. Different events in person, on the ground reporting, and even not necessarily on the ground, but picking up a phone, actually calling people, emailing people, filing open records requests. Like I shared earlier, that I've paid $70 of my own money, and actually, you know, that comes from you guys donating and supporting. I use that money for things like that, so I could find out if Houston's still fluoridating their water. This is the work of a real investigative journalist, and I don't think there are a lot of people doing what I do in independent media. And maybe I need to, you know, focus more on that, because I know even from the people I respect that there's a difference. There are some people who are good at researching. They can read a lot of books and they can rewrite it and make it palatable to you. And that's a job. That's an important skill. There's some people who are good at interviews and who can bring you information you might not find. But investigative journalism is a very specific practice. And I don't even claim to be perfect in it. I didn't go to journalism school. I'm self-taught, self-trained. And I think that's actually better. I've learned how the corporate media on the local level, when you go to press conferences or even on the national level, they'll throw softball questions to politicians because they want to get invited back, and they want to get invited to the fancy galas and the dinners and to the country clubs. But little old me with a handheld camera asking tough questions, everybody looks at me like, who the hell let this guy in? It takes work and takes time, and I love it, and it's my passion. And so I've been reading this book, Investigative Journalism, A Survival Guide. He also has a chapter on conspiracy theories, which is, like, I think kind of interesting. Again, not throwing it all out. Overall, I disagree with most of what he says on the conspiracies, but I think he's also right that sometimes we can fall in the trap of looking for connections when they might not necessarily be there. But he also has a very dismissive view of, like, yeah, we all know conspiracies are crazy. There's nothing there to look at. So he would probably be the kind of person that, as a journalist, wouldn't even follow the fluoride story, because he knows, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. We all know that, right? That's just one of those right-wing John Birch Society conspiracy theories out there. And so some journalists fail because their minds are too closed to see the truth around them. But nevertheless, it's been an interesting read. And it's just like a bunch of essays. So I'm just picking it up and reading it every night before bed. And I've got some other ones I think I already shared with you guys recently. Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. This is about the Jesuits, written by Samuel Morse of Morse Code Infamy. And I'm reading that for the final episode of The Pyramid of Power, which will be coming out very soon. Chapter 16 of The Pyramid of Power will be out very soon. Religion and Secret Societies. You can check out the entire series at thepyramidofpower.net. And thank you to everybody who's been supporting me on that effort. All right, I think we're going to wrap up for today, guys, and I'm going to end with the music video, but I will read some comments real quick. And just by a show of hands out there, I want to know, I didn't set this up today, but I'm going to set it up next week. How many people in my audience use Monero, XMR? If you know, you know, because I don't take money from YouTube or from Rumble, so I don't do the whole super chats thing, but I would like to be able to receive your donations and support if you want to. But I don't want to use the government money. I want to use private cryptocurrencies like Monero. So there is something called XMR Chat. It's kind of like Super Chats, but it allows people to donate Monero as we're live, and I can pop it all on screen and show you guys that. So just by answering whatever platform you're on, I'm just curious, how many people in my audience are into Monero or XMR? I know some of you guys think everything crypto related is totally, you know, system and controlled, and that's fine. We can debate that forever, but I'm just curious. Andrew Ananda says, I mean, brain chips are for our own good, ain't it? Yeah, there's one. And this is always a great quote from TS, from William J. Casey, CIA director. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. And that's absolutely, I think, done by design. Negras Tormentas says, Joe Rogan must be a conspiracy theorist that most has on and believes in CIA and former CIA. He definitely has on all kinds of, like, he had Peter Thiel, he had Donald Trump. I mean, Operation Mockingbird in the 2025, the fifth generation warfare is through podcasts and through Twitter. Absolutely. They are definitely controlling what's trending, controlling what's in the feed. I don't trust any of that shit. And we need to be skeptical. Be skeptical of the people who are telling you Trump's good. Be skeptical of the people who are telling you that voting's the only way. Anarcha Rika, how you doing? Says the sellouts are a damn shame. That's for sure. Yep. And I know other people, it's not the type of club that helps mankind. That's true. All right. Great comments here. Appreciate you guys being here. It's a big club and we ain't in it. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'm going to end with a brand new song, guys. As I said, for those of you, we got a couple of comments here. Negra says, XMR in principle can be an important tool. I've tested it. Monero is a great tool. Absolutely. And I love gold and silver too, but I can't carry $10,000 worth of gold across the border. I can't, easily mail a friend $10,000 worth of gold or silver, but I can send 10,000 plus worth of Monero in a couple of minutes, and the government isn't involved and the banks aren't involved. I could walk across a border with a USB drive with $1 million of Monero and they wouldn't know the difference, right? So there is a place, I think, for using private cryptos like Monero. I'm not saying it's the only solution or anything like that, but it's definitely useful. So we'll see if we can debut that XMR chat on the next show. Tonight's song that I'm end with is a brand new song of mine called Unwritten, and I'm going to be playing it for the first time in 2 weeks at the People's Reset. Again, if you want to come to Mexico, I highly encourage you. It's going to be a great time. People of all ages, backgrounds, dozens of countries, workshops, concerts. I'm going to be performing, and I'm super excited. I wrote this song called Unwritten because, you know what? There's a lot of doomsayers out there. There's a lot of false hopium out there. And people want to believe that Donald Trump's coming to save the day or that we're all screwed and there's nothing we can do. But in reality, the future is unwritten. I'm warning you guys about what's happening. I've been warning about it in my books because I want to stop it. I don't think it's inevitable that their plans are going to succeed. I think it's going to be a bumpy ride. And those of us who take action can survive and thrive, but it's going to be hard and it's going to be tough, especially for the coming generations. But I don't think their future, the Great Reset, Agenda 2030, is guaranteed. We are still deciding that right now. The future is unwritten. And so that's what this song is about. It's called Unwritten, and it features my friend Presence, Grant Elman, who's an amazing, amazing artist. This song will be live everywhere tomorrow across all, the social media platforms, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all the usual crap that the music goes out to. And you can find me there at 33 is here. And last thing, because I know somebody's going to say, oh, Derrick, 33, are you a Freemason? I'm not a Freemason. And in fact, it's funny because just yesterday I was sharing on my own Twitter that the CNN has reported that Hamas and Israel are about to reach a new deal, a hostage deal, to release 33 people. And I pointed that out. I just said, interesting. Because I do understand that they, them, those, the predator class, the secret societies, that they do speak in symbols and in codes. But that doesn't mean that everybody who uses those numbers is a part of that operation. In fact, for me, 33 is about healing. It's about growth. It's about struggle. It's a journey. And I started rapping at the age of 33. And it's really just a way for me to kind of process a lot of my trauma and my pain and stuff. And it's been a beautiful journey. So if you listen to my lyrics, you can hear what my music's about. It's about waking up. It's about building a better world. It's just an extension of my activism and everything else I do, because I understand that them, yes, they know how to use symbols, they know how to use numbers, etc. But that doesn't mean that we can't reclaim those symbols and we can't reclaim those numbers. Here it is. Hamas expected to release 33 hostages, Israel officials say. And I said, because yes, they do signal each other that way. but that doesn't mean everybody who understands the power of numbers or the power of symbols is using them. Just like a pyramid or a triangle, when they use it, they have their own meaning. We can invert that. We can take their meanings and we can invert them. I don't give they, them a monopoly on my life. So if the Freemasons think that 33 means one thing for them, cool. That's not what it means for me. If the Illuminati thinks that a pyramid means an all-seeing eye and, manipulating, controlling the world, great. That's not what it means for me. Do not give your power away and let these people decide what these symbols mean. So that's my little rant about symbols, guys. This is my song called Unwritten. Find me at 33ishere.com. Follow me at theconsciousresistance.com. Get your tickets to the People's Reset in 2 weeks in Mexico, thepeoplesreset.org. Until next time, my friends, I hope you enjoy this song. And remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.
33. Present. Doing it again.
Yeah. I can't believe this is my life and I'm on top. I had to hit rock bottom and I didn't stop. Fell to the floor, crashed to the depths of hell. Made so many mistakes, but my soul ain't for sale. Forgive myself, forgive those who crossed me. Not like I'm keeping score, but I keep coming up empty. There's a big world out here, waiting to be discovered. There's so many hidden truths, waiting to be uncovered. There's no going back, the future's unwritten. We can keep trying, but there's no use preventing. Creator has a plan, and I'm ready to embrace my destiny in this journey through time and space. There's no going back, the future's unwritten. You can keep trying, but there's no use preventing. Creator has a plan, and it's time to embrace your destiny in this journey through time and space. You ever feel like you got a bigger mission to fulfill? There's too much to do, can't get caught sitting still. I know I'm meant to be more than a cog in the machine. Not sure where I'm headed, but I'm more than I seem. They say the grass ain't always greener, but I gotta find out. Get to the other side so I can erase my doubt. I'm tuned into my purpose, no more feeling worthless. No more wasting time, asking if I deserve this. This is my moment to show my full potential. This is my one shot, so I'm done being sinful. I feel nothing but gratitude, just anticipating. I know I can take on anything I'm facing. There's no going back, the future's unwritten. We can keep trying, but there's no use preventing. Creator has a plan, and I'm ready to embrace my destiny in this journey through time and space. There's no going back, the future's unwritten. You can keep trying, but there's no use preventing. Creator has a plan, and it's time to embrace your destiny in this journey through time and space.
You ever feel like you're capable of more? Saw a vision, yet you making same decisions before. Feeling like a couple version of yourself a reward. The one that's complacent and the one that's awake in the soul. Yeah, highest priority life force. Only giving my body what it was designed for. Higher dimensional consciousness, I know I got to explore. Higher priority is a cleaner piece I got to restore. All the bullshit on the beat shoot, from the fear porn to the fake news. With the clickbait for the most views, gonna distract from the real you. Gotta break the cycle of attachment addiction. Tell the story now. It remains unwritten.
There's no going back, the future's unwritten. We can keep trying, but there's no use preventing. Creator has a plan, and I'm ready to embrace my destiny in this journey through time and space. There's no going back, the future's unwritten. You can keep trying, but there's no use preventing. Creator has a plan, and it's time to embrace your destiny in this journey through time and space. I stand for the 7 generations, original First Nations. Call onto your ancestors and ask for patience. Can't stop climbing in the face of these obstacles. The truth's within each of us like the Gnostic Gospels. And yes, it's true that time is running low, but we determine our future with the seeds we sow. So let's keep building the world of our dreams as we watch Babylon come apart at the seams. 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 Watch Babylon come apart at the seams.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.